Madam Chair, you are live.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board. Today we are April the 23rd, 2024, and I'll call this meeting to order. Amanda, may we have a roll call, please?
Madam Chair Rios,
Here.
Member Benvenu.
Here.
Member Bescheid.
Here.
Member Aguilar Madrano.
Here.
Member Mather.
Excused.
Member Valdo.
Here.
Vice Chair Guida.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there is. Cheerios and members of the board, under staff communications, we're gonna have item B go first, and then item C, and then item A. Item A after that. And also under new business, case number 2024-008010, HDRB 723 Old Santa Fe Trail has been postponed.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said in reference under staff communications. Are we going to hear all of those?
Yes, we're gonna hear all three, but item B is gonna go first, and
Okay.
then item C, and then item A.
Okay, got you. Any other changes? There are no other changes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as just amended?
Benvenu moves to approve as amended.
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Benvenu.
Yes.
Member Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
Member Aguilar Madrano. Member Bescheid.
Yes.
It is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. We have minutes of April the 9th, 2024. Changes to the minutes of April the 9th. It appears not. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Chair moves to approve.
Wait a second.
And roll call vote, please.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
Member Aguilar Madrano. Vice Chair Guida.
Yes.
Member Benvenu.
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Madam Chair, minutes have passed.
Thank you very much. Under findings of fact and conclusions of law, we have 6. They are all from February 27th, 2024. Changes to any of these? Members, staff? It appears not. Is there a motion to approve?
Benvenu moves to approve as submitted.
Aguilar Madrano seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
Member Benvenu.
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Abstain?
Member Aguilar Madrano.
Yes.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
Madam Chair, your findings have been approved.
Thank you. Matters from the public. Anyone in this room wishes to come and speak on anything board related?
Stephanie Beninato. I wasn't sure if the whole idea of the Zozobra figure was going to have public comment or not. Could you let me know? Because then I wouldn't have to say anything right now. That coming up tonight? I thought it was on your agenda. So
See, Heather,
Sure,
could you comment on that?
since the zebra is a sculpture and it is not a structure firmly affixed to the ground or permanently fixed to the ground, the sculptures don't count as something that is subject to the Historic Districts Ordinance. However, I felt it was important that this board knew about it, and Randy Randall was kind enough to come and present it.
Right. And Stephanie is asking, will there be public comment?
So that is up to the pleasure of the chair.
Okay, thank you. I always think it's important to hear from the public. After all, you all come here and make yourselves known.
then I can wait till that's presented if you would like. Or do you
So
want me to do it now?
when that is presented,
Okay, thank you.
okay? Anyone else in this audience wishing to comment on anything? Anyone on Zoom? Heather?
Chair Rios, no.
Okay, so now we go under staff communications, and the first thing is in reference to the Zozobra statue. And Gary, are you going to do that? Or you, Heather?
I'll be making, well, actually, Ms. Randall will be, of Santa Fe Tourism will be making the presentation.
Oh, okay.
He's our Director of Santa Fe Tourism, and I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that it will be up on the screen.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is a sculpture by Don Cannell that's proposed to be placed on Federal Place behind the Convention Center. You may recall that on the corner of Federal and Marcy, there's a big Don Cannell dog sculpture. There are two rabbits that have joined him there. And then on the wall, there's another sculpture that's a little bit of a geometric piece. And then on the wall, there's some Don Cannell birds. And so that takes you over to the entrance of the back dock area of the convention center. Then to the right of that, there's an empty bed that's sitting there waiting for something to happen. And we thought in tourism as well as the operation of the convention center that it would be a good idea to continue that same artist feel back there, but to put up a piece that would commemorate the 100th burning of Zozobra, which will come and go. It's going to be a big deal for our city this year. But when it goes, it's kind of nice to have something that commemorates it. So this sculpture would be put back there. It will be a little bit different than what's shown here that would have long sleeves instead of short sleeves. And I think there's a watch chain on the Zozobra's side that would be removed. All of the design has come from Kiwanis and from Ray Sandoval, who has been in charge of the burning of Zozobra for years. So Kiwanis is excited about this happening. And the Arts Commission has approved it unanimously to be placed there from their perspective. And so it was suggested that we maybe should come here and present it to your group as you are the keepers of all things wonderful in the historic district.
Well, thank you. And thank you for that compliment. Can you tell us how tall?
It's 18, to the top of Zozobra's head is 15 feet from, be actually 16 and a half. The base is 18 inches high. They're just short little steps, and that's to model the steps that the fire dancer goes up and down in front of Zozobra at the annual burning. The body of Zozobra is 15 feet tall, and then his finger extends up another 12 to 18 inches above that. His arms will move a little bit. Don's going to put a pulley and system inside of the sculpture so that its arms will move a little to give it some life. And that'll move just with the wind. It won't be mechanically controlled, or it won't be run by a motor or anything. Its head will be on a taut steel spring, so it will move a little bit with the wind. We've thought it would be fun if his eyes were red or could blink or have color in them. So there will be power in the bed. We'll have some evening uplighting on him, but it'll be controlled in so that it doesn't go up into the night sky. And that's for both security purposes as well as allowing the statue to have some life after dark.
What is it made of?
Tin, be basically the same material as what's on the dog and the rabbits and the birds, but it will have auto paint with the coloring that you see. Will be done with an auto paint, and then it'll have a protective lacquer on top of that.
And do you have a time frame of how long it'll be there? Or do you know?
How long? I'm sorry?
How long will it be on display?
It will be a permanent installation.
Permanent? Okay. Let's see if other board members have questions or comments. Board members? Member Aguilar Madrano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just telling the chair how much I love Zozobra, and I already got my tickets this past weekend. So I'm really excited about this. When we saw the teaser in our packet, but didn't have an attachment, I was anxious to see what it looked like. So I love it. I'm really excited to see it installed. I am glad he's getting long sleeves just to be more consistent with his traditional design. My only question to celebrate the 100th year anniversary, I noticed here, like his buttons, are they gold? Is that for the 100th year?
Madam Chair, I don't think that, the concept was not to make it resemble the 100th. That will be this year. It's just to be what Kiwanis felt was the best replication of the annual Zozobra, because as you know, it changes a bit every year.
Mhm. Great. Thanks for bringing it and showing us tonight.
Thank you. So anyone in this audience wishing to come and comment? And while she's going to the podium, Heather, is this an informational item or I'm gathering it is?
Yes,
Okay,
Madam Chair, that's correct.
okay, thank you. Hi, Stephanie.
Stephanie Beninatto. I understand that it's the 100th anniversary of Zozobra, but I feel like the city is supporting this to an extent that goes beyond. So we have a name change on one of the fields at Fort Marcy, which I think was called Majors Field. And now it's going to have some reference to Zozobra. The city is supporting a Zozobra balloon that will go on for years. That's going to be quite expensive in upkeep. We now have this statue that is a piece of art so that you don't really have much say about it. But I just feel like it's an overkill, like just with La Fonda. I mean, I think their 100th year little centennial flags are still out 2 years later. I would feel better if this was going to go away after a certain number of years. And I think I've said this before in front of city council, but for me, and maybe it's because I have PSTD, when I hear thousands and thousands of people screaming, burn him, and no, absolutely not. This is not a fun event for me at all. And as I did say, unfortunately for me, my first Zozobra here, a friend of mine was double raped on the way home. So not for everybody is it a fun event. And, I understand it's important, but I feel like it's just taking over. Thank you.
Okay. By the way, Majors Field, I believe that I read that the name is not changing and do you know what they're going to have Majors Field and then they're going to have like a subtitle, Zozobra?
Madam Chair, the way I understand it is that Majors Field will remain Majors Field. The field that would be named after Zozobra is where the Fuego play that has never had a name. And so that field, which is a separate field from Majors Field, would be the Zozobra Field. And that's where the crowd assembles to yell, burn him, and see Zozobra burn on a name. So I always appreciate public's comments, but I think that compares Zozobra's 100th to La Fonda's 100th is La Fonda is a business here in Santa Fe. I love the business. I'm a tourism director for the city, but it's a privately owned business. Zozobra is part of the heritage of Santa Fe. Everyone doesn't have to like him. Everybody doesn't have to go to Zozobra. But it's really been an understated event and uniqueness to Santa Fe that helps make us so special and so different. And I'm so happy that the 100th has been marketed as it has. I wish some other 100th things that have happened in Santa Fe had the same enthusiasm. And had they had that enthusiasm, they would have had the same support from the city.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in this audience wishing to comment or anyone else on Zoom?
Madam Chair, no one on Zoom. And I would just like to add that the Arts Commission has reviewed this. Is that correct?
Okay, thank you. I know you said you didn't like it, Stephanie, but try it this year. It's not really that bad. It's a wonderful city celebration. Anyway, okay, we'll go on to B, which is Seca Madre School.
Okay, Madam Chair and members of the board, this is a Seca Madre Elementary School that are proposing to put up a outdoor classroom. It's a 20 feet by 34 feet outdoor classroom, 680 square foot.
Gary, may I ask you to speak right into that mic so we can all hear you? Please, thank you.
This is a view from the street, and you can see the setbacks back in here. That would be the outdoor classroom. This is also like an aerial view from the street area. This is from the north view. This is how we looking from the street as well. Has the existing building there, the outdoor classroom, the gutter system. This is a site plan where it shows exactly where it's gonna be, approximately where it's gonna be. And this is a photo looking towards where the classroom is gonna be. This is looking from the north. And the applicant is here if you have any questions for him as well.
Thank you, Gary. Any questions or comments for Gary? Board members? Member Guido.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gary, question for you and Heather. Typically we see these things come up as an application, a review case. This is under construction, or is this here tonight for our approval?
This is just information only, and this is what they want to propose for the future.
Is it going to come back for approval?
No, it's information only.
Heather?
Rios, member Guida, the section 14-5.2 M, I believe.
And
Thank you. There's too many state capital outlay projects. So school outlay, capital outlay projects are under a different process. The subcommittee that we appointed, you may remember, Ms. Bescheid and Mr. Bienvenu have reviewed the project, and they didn't have any comments. And so this is the opportunity for the board to review it in full and maybe offer other comments, but it is under that special review process.
Thank you, Heather, for explaining that. That makes sense. So following that process, basically this board makes a recommendation for approval to city council. Is that correct?
Chair Rios, member Guida, I don't believe so, but I'll double check the code.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, we're in a confusing posture as we sit here tonight because we actually haven't, our subcommittee hasn't actually reviewed this proposal. It was the same plans were provided to us, but our response was, or at least mine, was to find out what the rest of the process was supposed to look like. And so I sent an email to city attorney and to Gary asking whether or not this should come back before the board for final approval, which I understand to be the process under subsection N. And I haven't heard back on that, but I do not believe that this can be approved without going through that 4 or 5 step process that's laid out in subsection N that just starts with consultation, requires consultation with community members, then a presentation to the board for feedback, and an effort to resolve any concerns, and then coming back before the board for final approval.
And Member Bienvenu, with apologies that I didn't respond specifically to your email. I did have the opportunity to look up subsection N of Santa Fe City Code, section 14-5.2. As I understand it, because it's been a long time since I've been through this process, there is a process before commencing with the design phase And there's a consultation with the Historic Districts Review Board as to the appropriate design standards and how those design standards would impact the costs and the operation of the manor. I believe that's what the subcommittee was appointed for, right, or the agents for the. So then the county and the Santa Fe Public Schools shall also make every reasonable effort to obtain input from members of identifiable community groups. I don't know if that has taken place yet. Is there been a reasonable effort to obtain input from members of identifiable community groups?
Not that I know of.
Okay, and see, I think that's where we have to go after this point. This is for information only. This particular hearing today or tonight does not fulfill all the requirements of a quasi judicial hearing. So this is the very first step of that process as I read it under 14-5.2 N2 little a.
Okay, well, that's how I understood the process as well. So what we're talking about now is just providing feedback to from the board to the applicant with respect to this project. And I wouldn't say the subcommittee ever really completed its work because we asked questions that still remain somewhat unresolved and unanswered. I had a question about whether or not the shed roof is permitted in this district. We had questions about the material choice, and I think we established that it was a significant structure, the school itself, and so there were some questions about the appropriateness of the design in relationship to that structure, particularly given its high visibility on Acequia Madre. Those were really just questions. Those weren't actually saying we wouldn't agree to it, but it was something that we were hoping to get some feedback from staff on.
There is a section with respect to roofs. As I see this is, I don't know if this section covers it, but the section N3A(1) reads roofs generally shall be flat with a slight slope surrounded by a parapet of the same color and materials as the walls or of brick. Roof shall generally not be carried out beyond the line of walls except to cover an enclosed portal or porch formed by setting back a portion of the wall or to form an exterior portal, the outer edge of the roof being supported by columns, posts, or other vertical supports. No cantilevers shall be permitted except over projecting vigas, beams, or wood corbels, or as part of the roof treatment not to exceed an overhang of 30 inches. The restriction as to flat roofs shall not be construed to prevent the construction of skylights or installation of air conditioning devices or any other necessary roof structures, but such structures other than chimneys, flues, vents, and aerials shall be so placed as to be concealed by the parapet from any public way. Whether or not that covers this particular project, no, I can't say it's very clear.
Why wouldn't it?
Well,
Oh, because it's it's not a school room per se. It's just sort of a utilitarian.
because
inside
it's a
structure.
detached structure, and this seems to apply to the roof of the main unit, the main.
If I might interrupt, can the drawings be put back up on the screen? And also, Member
Yes.
Benvenue, are you all still under the consultation phase?
Well, as I said, that's what we asked and we didn't get an answer to. We heard it was coming tonight for informational purposes. Then it was said it was going to be, then it would never come back before the board again, which is why I asked. Well, that's why I said I didn't agree that that was the process as set forth in the ordinance. That's the last I heard. So I don't believe we've finished the consultation process. On the other hand, I think it's just as well for the board to provide feedback at this time as for just two members of the board to do so.
Member Bienvenue, I do believe, and Madam Chair, I do believe that ultimately the Historic District Review Board has to give final approval, which is what's required under N2C after consultation with the identifiable community groups. And then there has to be a public meeting. That's the way I read the code.
Agreed.
Member Beachside.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if it's appropriate, but it might be helpful to look back at the solar installation at Aseke Madre, I believe was funded the same way. I can't recall if we provided final approval or a recommendation to the governing body for approval. But I think in both cases, I think Aseke Madre followed a process of involving, or like, at least in the previous case, involving the community, had input on that, and I think their initiative to include sort of more modern aspects of educational facilities in a sensitive lighting for a historic building has been admirable. And I just had, the questions about the material, but I think the siding is quite sensitive. And, I agree with Member Bienvenu that we should just open it up for board feedback at this point. I don't think there's anything more to the package to analyze as a subcommittee. And if this could just close out that portion, that would be helpful, I think.
Okay, what is the purpose of this structure?
What is it again, Madam Chair?
What is the purpose? What is it going to be used for?
It's an outdoor classroom. And we have the applicant here, the architect, if you want to ask him questions as well for materials and all that stuff.
Okay, so Heather, if we go forward on this, do we get the architect to be sworn in if I get, or we're still operating under information only?
Madam
mean-
Chair, it is the latter. Thank you. I don't believe that he needs to be sworn in at this point since it's informational and feedback and there's no
The
act.
board members can give feedback. It would be appropriate for them to give feedback at this point. Okay. If you'd like to come forward, if we have any questions for you.
In order to address the use of the structure, it's going to be a flexible use. The teachers will request time periods when they want to use it, and the school will figure out how to work the schedule out. But it's a flexible classroom inspired by some of the experience that the school had during the COVID years. Not quite out of, I guess, but anyway, so Aseke Madre has been actively pursuing outdoor education. They have a lot of plantings. They have a greenhouse at the rear. So it's sort of in conjunction with the philosophy that they're developing that it's outdoor education is very beneficial for young children.
Chris, can you please state your name for the?
Yes, my name is Christopher Bowen with Spears Horn Architects.
And Mr. Bowen, can you talk to us a little bit about the material and the dimensions, please?
Well, the dimensions are pretty much a typical classroom size. The lower walls would be stuccoed to match the stucco color of the main building. The metal support structure and roof would be colored to match some of the accent colors of the windows of the school. Then we have the metal slats, which provide an area for hanging up any sort of learning materials, blackboards, whiteboards. Those would probably be colored a neutral color to not draw much attention to them. And then there would be a banco on the back wall that would also be stucco finished.
Thank you. Other questions or comments, board members? Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Chris. Very nice design for this. And my earlier comments were not intended to make more process for you or the school. It's already onerous enough to come to H board. But, they're directed at the idea that, we see enough of these capital outlay processes, we should have a roadmap at this point for what these processes look like, both for you and the school and for the benefit of the board and the public. It should be a very kind of clear process that, that there is this kind of consultation, that there is engagement, that it comes back here and whether a decision needs to be made or not. I think those are things that I'm surprised we don't have yet, and we should have at this point. I'd say also that, what I see in front of me is a, very honest and direct freestanding building that's a garden structure for the outside space of the school. And so I would be very supportive of it being built the way that we see it now and not pretending to be some kind of false interpretation of history. The idea that the roof rule that the city attorney just read with parapets and all of that would apply to such a structure, to me, is a little bit absurd. And, this board has approved things in the downtown and east side historic district that look far more like this, perhaps with wood detailing instead. And we've approved them as freestanding carports and pergolas. And I would characterize this building for staff review as a pergola or covered outdoor open air structure for that very reason. The other thing that, for staff that, that I would expect to see in an improved process for things like this is some measure of staff consultation with the applicant before something comes to the board like this, so that we would know whether staff expects to interpret the code a certain way, rather than leaving it to these discussions here where we may or may not have a path forward. It certainly should be within staff's expertise to provide a design review, a preliminary design review and preliminary ordinance assessment, applicable ordinance assessment to applicants for something such as this, so that, we're not talking about a design and then staff later interprets the code differently. I think it would be good to get that aligned up front. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Guida. Those were very good comments. I do feel that we should have a capital outlay project process, and that should be spelled for us because it's a bit complicated. And when a capital outlay project comes before the board, we kind of get reacquainted with it. But then in the meantime, we kind of forget. So if we have something that's in writing, it benefits the applicant and it benefits us and it benefits you, the public. So that, yeah, and when a project such as this one comes before the board, we should have, things should be spelled out from staff's point of view. They should tell us, okay, this is coming to you as an informational item. And then the next process, the next step will be such and such, so that we're clear on that. Member Aguilar Medrano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't seen it in person. You mentioned a greenhouse. Does this design relate at all to the design of the greenhouse? Are they completely different?
Well, it relates in the fact that a greenhouse doesn't look like an adobe or adobeoid, a faux adobe structure. So they're it's quite modern, but they're not visually, you don't see the two of them together from any viewpoint. So we didn't really take that into account. This was more of an independent kind of a design.
And do you have an elevation from Estequia Madre looking north?
That's the one we have right there.
What is the slope of the roof?
It's very minimal. It's 1 to 12.
My only other comment, just from a landscape architecture perspective, is if you considered sloping the roof the other way, so that some of the trees could benefit from the water runoff.
Yeah, we're actually using the water runoff to water the trees. If can you show the plan? Yeah, I probably can't see this, but we are planning on doing a channel to carry that. So a couple of things. There is an existing pollinator garden that we're planning on moving to the front of the site, which would put it in front of the structure to help screen it from the road. There's an existing memorial tree that we're keeping in place, and we were planning on using the water from the roof runoff to help water that tree.
Okay.
We are trying to be sensitive to the use of the water in that.
Okay. Great, thank you. And you just flipped past another elevation. Can you go back one? I think it was, yeah, that way.
Section, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess my only comment would be to just have the slope of the roof be as minimal as possible as required for drainage. And if there's, and I guess the other reason, if there's any pushback, perhaps the public later on of seeing that slope, that could be another, it could be north to south, and then it wouldn't be as noticeable from the street is another option, but
North to south would be running in the wrong direction, so it'd be higher actually if we did it in that direction, but
mm,
anyway.
Oh, thank
Understood.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, board members? So Heather, I'm understanding that then this will come back before the board so that we can act on it.
Yes, Chair Rios, we'll go over the process and Frank and I were discussing this. We're going to do flow charts for both state capital outlay projects as well as the school outlay projects that we can incorporate into the staff report. Also, we will present it for your approval beforehand. So yes, that is correct.
Thank you. I'm just thinking, would it be more appropriate for the public to speak when it comes before the board or now? And maybe the architect might get some other suggestions if they are heard tonight. So I think I just answered my question. Anyone in the audience wishing to come and comment on this? Come forward. Quick comment. Thank you.
Stephanie Benenato. I kind of like the way it looks, except for the slatted metal that forms the walls around the classroom itself. I find that not very harmonious with the streetscape. And I actually like I think it's okay that it slopes the way it does, but I actually like your idea, Member Aguilar Medrano, because even though it would be higher, you're not seeing the whole area of the roof if it slopes north to south. I also just want to point out that I understand, this is sort of a reaction to COVID, but it is just one classroom. So, it's going to be shared. It's not like if everyone had to suddenly go outside, that this is going to take care of the problem. And I do appreciate that Acequia Madre is trying to have children have outdoor experiences and have the greenhouse and be energy efficient, and being sensitive, I think, to the surroundings, especially with the solar. I thought they worked with the neighborhood really well in doing that. And I don't mind in this case the metal, because it will be painted and it's a school building. There's plenty of other metal like on playgrounds and things like that. So
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to guess there's no one on Zoom.
No, Chair Rios.
We'll go on to the 2024 Santa Fe Heritage Preservation Awards vote.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here to present the Santa Fe Heritage Preservation Award nominees for 2024. First, I'd like to start off by saying May is Preservation Month nationwide. Preservation Month celebrates local preservation efforts. This is the 52nd annual awards in which the City of Santa Fe, Old Santa Fe Association, and the Historic Santa Fe Foundation award people and projects in their preservation efforts. The Santa Fe Heritage Preservation Award ceremony will be located at San Miguel Chapel on May 9th at 5:30 p.m. We all welcome you and the public to join. Staff has put voting sheets on your desk. Please select your votes and staff will pick up from your desk at the end of the hearing tonight. Let's get started. first, we have Architectural Preservation Award. The address is,
Amanda, if I can interrupt you, sorry, you didn't want me to vote?
yes, ma'am, we do.
I don't have a voting.
Oh, you don't?
No. I'm sure I'll get one.
So first, we have Architectural Preservation nominees. We have 853 East Palace Avenue, 401 Old Santa Fe Trail, and 201 Washington Avenue. For architectural preservation, we look for outstanding examples of restoration or rehabilitation of a designated historic property. For 853 Palace, it is contributing in the downtown and east side historic district. This is former Palace Grocery. The building was refreshed but kept the brick coping and fenestrations of the former neighborhood grocery, retaining its look and contribution to the district and the streetscape. Next, we have 401 Old Santa Fe Trail, the significant downtown and east side historic district, also known as the oldest church. San Miguel did a great job of architectural preservation and greening of the building with solar panels. There is no visual impact to the historic structure. They work to be sensitive to this significant building's architecture. Next, we have 201 Washington Avenue. It's contributing to the downtown and east side historic district. Former Sinclair, Gulf, and Exxon gas station. The last gas station and garage to close in downtown Santa Fe. This iconic building has retained its character over time. Los Polanos carefully restored the building, updating the materials without changing from the character. The colors chosen and approved by the HDRB harken back to when the building was a Sinclair.
I need to say something in reference to this three nominees.
Yes, Madam
For
Chair.
the East Palace Grocery was already given an award some years back. Yes. So
Madam Chair, we did look into that and we saw that they were nominated, but I did not see that they were given an award.
we're-
Okay, thank you for that.
I'm pretty sure that they did. I mean, if you want to recognize them, I'm quite positive that they won the award, that they got the award.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just a matter of information.
Thank you. It's good to have that long knowledge. You know, we go back several years when we look into these awards. So thank you for your knowledge. Compatible Remodel Award nominees, 626 Canyon Road, 459 Camino Manzano, 104 Kyla La Pena, 224 Maynard Street, and 1404 Cerro Gordo. When we look at compatible remodels, we're looking for outstanding examples of building remodel that harmonizes with the historic structures in the historic districts. On 626 Canyon Road, it's a contributing downtown and east side historic district. The owners did a beautiful job gently remodeling the property and not changing the character. .459 Camino Manzano is a non-contributing downtown and east side historic district. They did a fantastic conversion from a carport to a garage. 104 Calle La Pena is a non-contributing downtown and east side historic district. And they've kept the character of Pueblo Revival undulation, exterior site walls, and the entrance. Next, we have 224 Maynard Street. It's a non-contributing West Side Guadalupe Historic District. And they did a simple remodel that remains the character. 1404 Cerro Gordo. It's non-contributing to the downtown and East Side Historic District. And they did a nice example of meeting the downtown and East Side design standards. Now we move on to compatible new construction. The award nominees are 1292 Lejano Lane, 1023 East Alameda, and 655 Alto Street. When we look at compatible new construction, we're looking for outstanding examples of new construction that harmonizes with the historic structures in the historic districts. On 1292 Lejano Lane, it's in the downtown and East Side Historic District. We see that it has block massing, low profile, melts into the surrounding landscape, and it's a more modern interpretation of Santa Fe style. We have 1023 East Alameda. It's in the downtown and East Side Historic District. And this also is a modern interpretation of Santa Fe style on a small lot with riverwalk wall, brick coping, and beautiful earth tones. And we have 655 Alto Street, and this is in the West Side Guadalupe Historic District. It's an innovative design for infill of a small West Side Guadalupe lot. And our last awards presented for you this evening are the Cultural Preservation Award nominees. Old Santa Fe Association and the Olive Rush Memorial Studio Incorporated are nominated. The Old Santa Fe Association for the adoption of the locomotive 5030 at Salvador Perez Park, the War Baby, which is familiar to sight to all who has lived in Santa Fe, was donated to the city of Santa Fe by Atchison Topeka and Santa Fe Railroad in 1959. It has lived at the Santa Fe Salvador Perez Park since that time. Locomotive 5030 was built in 1944 and served as a troop train during World War II. The locomotive is a reminder of Santa Fe and New Mexico's association with World War II. In 2002, the Old Santa Fe Association adopted the train park, and along with some of the City of Santa Fe's parks team, Old Santa Fe Association has held its first cleanup of the fenced area around the locomotive. The train is a point of pride for Santa Feans, and Old Santa Fe Association has stepped up to care for the train as one of the ways they work to preserve Santa Fe's history and culture. And last but not least, we have the Olive Rush Memorial Studio. The Olive Rush Studio and Art Center is a small house at 630 Canyon Road. And the Olive Rush Memorial Studio was formed by the Rush families in 2022 to preserve the legacy and tell a story of painter Olive Rush and the Santa Fe arts movement. The Studio Museum will offer educational opportunities as well as display Rush art, furnishings, archive papers, and photographs. Rush was a forward-thinking 20th century female artist who was anti-war and an early environmentalist, in addition to being a talented painter. These are your nominees for the awards. I appreciate your votes, and I will turn it over to Gary. If you, members of the board, Madam Chair, if you have any questions for me?
Did you want these submitted this evening?
Yes, if you would just leave them on your desk, then I will pick them up after the hearing.
Yes, Member Aguilar Patrona.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda, I was just wondering, Is there ever a year where you don't have a project in one of these categories? Like, is an option also not voting for any of the projects if we don't think it's a good representation of that category?
You are welcome to not vote on it if that is your so choosing. Yes, so, and then I'd like to add too as well, it, it, the less participation that we get from the board makes it harder to put these awards together. We really count on your support in helping us find nominations for staff as well as.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Amanda. And just so the other board members know, member Beachai was able to find in 2020 is when the Palace grocery store had an award. So I don't know if we want to agree to mark that off since it was just 4 years ago, just so it doesn't mess up your tally later on.
Comments, board members? I would agree that it should be removed. That's just my comment.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
If it is the pleasure of the board, we will do that.
Board members, what do you think?
If it was
Yes.
the same award.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the same
then-
award.
Then it should
Yeah.
not be on the ballot. I would agree.
Okay,
Not a problem. We will take care of that.
okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, so cast your vote.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just, when you vote on which one's gonna win and who wins, the categories, just be advised that we're gonna need, someone from the board to do the presentation at the award ceremony.
Thank you. And you, audience members, you're all invited to attend. So, with that being said, they will pick those up, Amanda will pick those up at the ballots at the end of the meeting. We have nothing under old business, but we have 4 cases under new business. I'll quickly tell you a couple of things. I do want to limit, public comment to 2 minutes. And Amanda will help me with that, or it'll buzz, you'll hear a little ringing or after the 2 minute, 2 minutes are up. I also have to inform you that if you disagree with the decision that this board renders this evening, you do have the option to appeal, and that would go to the city council. That would be done after the findings and conclusions have been approved, and you have 15 days after that to appeal. With that being said, is the applicant for 330 Delgado here? The applicant is here. And this is Lanny's case. May we hear from you?
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. This is case 2024-008074 HDRB for 330 Delgado for a remodel of a contributing residential structure. 330 Delgado is on the northwest corner of Delgado Street and Plaza Fatima. The Applegate House is a single-family residence at 330 Delgado, which is listed as contributing with the south elevation designated as the primary facade. It's in the downtown and east side historic district. The 1,565 square foot Spanish Pueblo Revival residence was constructed prior to 1928 and is part of the Plaza Fatima compound. The residence was the home of Frank Applegate, a noted Santa Fe artist and co-founder of the Spanish Colonial Art Society from the mid-1920s until his death in 1931. The residence is a flat roofed building which steps up as it approaches to the west. It has undulating parapets, 2 chimneys, metal lined canales, 6/6 and 9/9 double hung windows, and a 2-light entry door. The western end of the structure appears to be the oldest portion and is constructed of adobe with interior finishes and thresholds of doorways that suggest that the western doorway in the entry hall and the doorway between the living room and kitchen originally led to the exterior of the structure. The more recent kitchen is constructed of a combination of concrete block and 2x2 frame, while the guest room and the eastern portion of the entry hall are constructed of 2x6 frame. The western end of the entry hall was formerly the residence's main entry portal, which was enclosed in the 1970s. The features and finishes of the southernmost end of the current kitchen suggest there was a secondary portal in this location that was also enclosed. There is a flagstone patio area to the east of the home. The residence is surrounded by a yard wall and coyote fencing ranging from 5 feet to 6 feet, which was approved and constructed in 2008. In 2003, under case 2003-17, sorry, the numbers changed, it's H-03-017. The applicant requested the renewal of the 2001 approval to construct a 223 square foot addition on the northwest portion of the residence, which was at that time 1,335 square feet. The addition was originally sought under case H-01-131 in 2001, but the approval lapsed without the work being executed. The addition was approved to be constructed to 10 feet 3 inches in height, which is 6 inches below the height of the rest of the structure, and fenestrated with 9/9 double hung sash windows in finished brown on the west elevation and a true divided light French door and a 2/6 window on the north elevation. Also approved at that time was the replacement of non-historic windows on the primary south facade with 6/6 simulated divided light windows, similar in pattern and profile to those that existed at the time. Later in 2003, the addition was increased in size by 60 square feet for a total of 283 square feet. In 2002, a 12 square foot shed was approved to be placed on the northwestern portion of the property, along with an interior-only kitchen remodel. In September of 2023, the applicant received a notice of violation for unpermitted work, which included window replacement, stucco, roofing, installation of light tubes, and hardscaping. In order to close the home up prior to winter, an administrative approval was issued for the roof, stucco, and hardscaping, and light tubes on October 17th of 2023. The applicant requests retroactive approval for the following exterior alterations: to replace 10 non-historic windows on the south elevation with double pane, double hung, true divided light windows. The window fenestrations and sizes remained the same. Replace 2 non-historic windows on the west elevation with casement windows with true divided lights. The window fenestrations and sizes remained the same. They painted all window trim on the property with a custom color similar to Faro and Ball's Bay Area blue, and installed an exterior solar powered lighting at the pedestrian gate of the yard wall. The applicant further requests to finish his project by constructing a freestanding 96 square foot pergola to a height of 7 feet 8 inches on the east of the residence in the courtyard. The pergola will be stained in natural wood finish. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds the application complies with section 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 14-5.2E, downtown and east side design standards. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Lanny. So the only part of this project that isn't done is the pergola. The applicant has gone forward and replaced the windows
Correct.
and painted and stuccoed. Okay. Questions, board members? At this time, will the applicant or applicants please come forward and get sworn in?
Hello, I'm Jonathan Harris from 330 Delgado Street.
You'll get sworn in. Okay, the city attorney, assistant city attorney will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. State your name.
Jonathan Harris.
You solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Madam Chair, Mr. Harris is
Thank you. Mr. Harris, do you have anything further to add?
I just wanted to thank you for hearing this case and also to apologize for having done the window work without seeking the approval ahead of time. I'm a new resident of Santa Fe, having purchased that house about a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago. And I moved here from Vermont, and I wasn't familiar with the building codes here and the need for approval to replace existing windows. Where I come from in Vermont, permits are only needed for adding new things, not for changing out existing windows. So I understand that now and just wanted to express my apologies, but really have tried to do my best to honor the historical nature of the building by replacing 1982 Marvin windows that were on that south facade and also one on the west facade with true divided light windows that are actually more in keeping with the older historical photos I was able to find of the building from the mid-20th century. And in doing so, I tried to match the windows that a previous owner had installed in the 2003 edition of that back room, which were Anderson windows with true divided lights. Those are the windows that I used in terms of swapping out the Marvin ones. And then all to say about the pergola is just that some shade is needed there because it gets very hot in the summer. And as you probably saw on your site visit today, there's just a small little front yard, and it would be really wonderful to have a little shady place to sit out there. And then the blue trim was replacing brown trim that was there before that felt, to my eye, a little bit tired and depressing. And one of the things I love about Santa Fe is the bright blue color that is all around the town, meeting the sky color, and thought it would be really beautiful to bring that same color accent to this building. So I think that's all I have to say, but would be glad to answer any other specific questions that you might have. Thanks again.
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments? It appears they don't have any questions or comments. Anyone in this audience wishing to comment on this project? Yes, please come forward and get sworn in.
My name is Marilyn Batts, and I live on Plaza Fatima, and I have been in place there since, excuse me, we both have allergies, I believe, since May of 1968. So I've seen all of that change.
Ms. Bass, would you raise your right hand, please?
Oh, sorry.
You solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Ms. Bass is sworn.
Having lived there for all of these years, I've seen all of these changes. The first people I remember living in this space were the Martinez's, where the entry was off of Delgado Street, and it was a whole different feeling to the building. I can attest to Jonathan's sincerity and his desire to be part of this community. We've had a lot of changes in this area, in that house. Before that, Plaza Fatima was pretty stable. And I would say that Jonathan not only did the job with good heart, it's the best the place has ever looked. And he really has a good heart and feel, I think, about Santa Fe. And I just want to attest to that.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wishing to comment? Anyone on Zoom?
Yes, Chair Rios, I am going to promote Mark Kreloff and Allison Moore first. And you can unmute. Please state your name and address for the record, and Attorney Ruby will swear you in.
Okay, I'm Mark Kreloff.
And Allison Moore.
Mr. Kreloff, did I say your name correctly?
Yes, Kreloff, thank you.
Kreloff. Did you state your address, please?
Yes, Allison and I live at 1 Plaza Fatima.
Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item should be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, the applicants have been sworn. They're not the applicants, but the persons on Zoom have been sworn.
You have the floor. We'll hear your comments.
Hi, this is Allison Moore, and as you had heard, I'm here joined by my husband, Mark. We do live at 1 Plaza Fatima, as mentioned, which is directly west of 330 Delgado. We share a property line on one side of our house with 330 Delgado, and just wanted to say that we've had the true pleasure and good fortune to live, at this location for 4 years, and was very excited and happy to see the changes that Jonathan was bringing to the neighborhood. It's been much appreciated.
And I'll just add that when Jonathan took possession of 330 Delgado, it was in desperate need of care and attention. We knew from conversations with the previous owners that the roof had leaked in a couple of places. There was a wastewater connection issue. We knew about some flooding when we had a heavy rainstorm where water accumulated, and we could see that the stucco needed a lot of attention, and the 1980s era windows, which Jonathan mentioned, looked to be in bad shape and in need of replacement.
We just wanted to say, in summary here that, since moving to 330 Delgado about a year and a half ago, Jonathan has done so much hard work and I think has tried to do his best to ensure that this, beautiful jewel of a home that he has is preserved for a very long time. He's very conscientious. And again, we've just been so happy to see that the work that he's done to preserve the home, both cosmetically and structurally.
Thank you. That's all we have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Arios, no.
Okay. Yes, we were on the site visit, some of us today, and you have done a very lovely job. It's very nicely done. And I'm glad that now that you are informed that anything done in the historic districts does have to come before the board. If there are no further comments, we have one from Member Benvenu.
Chair Rios, I'm sorry. We did just have a hand go up. Do you want me to go ahead and ask, allow them to speak? And this is Kurt Melander. Kurt, you can unmute and please state your name and address for the record. And then Attorney Rubeleid will swear you in.
Great. Kurt Melander. We live at 815 East Palace, number 11.
Mr. Melander, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Mr. Melander has been sworn.
Thank you, sir. You have the floor. Please speak.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief. My husband and I used to live at 330 Delgado many years ago. We are now very dear friends with Jonathan, and I should mention too, I'm a registered architect. We just wanted to say that we're very strongly in support of Jonathan's application. We think the Adobe looks fantastic. We think he's a wonderful person, and we just wanted to be here tonight for his support. That's it.
Thank you very much. Is that it, Heather, on Zoom?
Yes, Chair Rios, thanks.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion unless you have anything further. Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, this is, you've done a really, really nice job of renovating this property. I'm sure you know its importance, not just by its location, but by its previous resident. And I'm sure you're going to fill it with Frank Applegate art and furniture as your next step. Hopefully you're saving money for that. It won't be cheap, but it really is nice. And I hope that, you had a lot of support, which is always wonderful to hear, but I hope you wouldn't have thought there was any doubt about whether or not this was something that would be approved by the board. This is squarely within everything the board wants to see in renovations of historic properties in our historic districts. So you've made it, you've taken a really important, beautiful house and you've made it better. So kudos to you, and you're forgiven and absolved. So in case number 2024-008, 074 HDRB 330 Delgado Street. I move that the application be approved as submitted.
Leland Madrano seconds.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
Member Bescheid. Member Aguilar Madrano,
Yes.
Member Valdo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida,
Yes.
Madam Chair, it has been approved.
Very much, and thank you. Is the applicant for 125 Dudon Street here? The applicant is here. Okay, this is Ramon's case. Ramon, you have the floor, please. May we hear from you?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is case number 2023-007995-HDRB for renovation and porch enclosure. Durant Street is located on the east side of the street, north of West San Francisco Street and east of Elena Street. Structure is contributing to the West Side Guadalupe Historic District. The property is shown outlined here in red. The site plan and floor plan, I guess. Oblique of the west and south elevations. It's a simple house of adobe rectangular, topped with a hip roof, one corner cut out to serve as a porch. It holds about 945 square feet and includes 2 bedrooms, a bath, and a living room and a kitchen. Its stucco and roof are recent, but the windows are older, probably dating to the original construction date. Estimated date of construction is 1936. The south elevation. Cameras facing north. East elevation, camera facing west. The applicant is proposing to infill the low portions of that outdoor patio. This property came before the Historic Districts Review Board on a hearing on March 12th, 2024 to determine the status and primary facades. Case number 2024-007918-18-HDRB. The board found that the structure maintained contributing status with the west and south facades as primary. They're indicated in this diagram. They were excluding the patio that you see to the lower right. The existing floor plan is on the left and the proposed floor plan is on the right. It consists of mainly just enclosing that exterior patio. Or a bathroom and, no, for laundry and, yeah, and a bathroom and a small office. The existing north elevation in the upper left and the proposed below. The existing south elevations on the right. There's no proposed changes to that south elevation, which is a primary. The proposed west and east elevations. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and find that the application complies with section 14-5.2D, general design standards for all historic districts, and 14-5.2I, West Side Guadalupe Historic Districts. Staff finds the exception criteria has been met and recommends approval of the requested project. Staff also recommends that the historic windows on the northeast facade be reused in the new portal enclosure. And let me go back up and show you where those are. Well, that patio would be included, so that's facade F3. And the historic windows that I mentioned are on the left. There's 2 pair. in discussion with the applicant before the hearing, it's believed that only one of those 3 over ones would be, would have the space to fit in where they've got as designed. So with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Ramon. Questions? Anyone on the board for Ramon? It appears not. Applicant or applicants, please come forward and get sworn in.
Hello, Amelia Robinson.
Please state your name and your address, and the attorney will swear you in.
Amelia Robinson, 125 Duran Street.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Madam Chair, Ms. Robinson has been sworn.
Thank you. Do you have anything more to add to what Ramon just told us?
No, I mean, our goal, we live here full time. We've lived here for a few years, and there's 4 needs that needed to be met, but we love our house. We didn't want to make it some giant structure. So we, did the puzzle to figure out how we can fit all of those things in the same footprint of the existing house. My husband works from home, so we needed an office. We needed another bathroom. We currently don't have a closet or laundry facilities. So those were the 4 things that we were trying to squeeze into the existing footprint. And we've tried a lot of versions of this, and this seems to be by far the best option.
Thank you very much for your comments. And let's see if the board members have any questions for you. No questions. Member Beachside.
All right, just a clarification. Ramon, you mentioned suggesting the reuse of a window. Is that shown on your plans? The reuse of a window in your enclosed portal, or is that something you've agreed to do, or?
It's something I would do happily. I don't know from a documentation perspective if it's on there or not, but
It looked to me there's just one window and one door on your.
yes. So there are 2 existing historic windows and 1 small window that was added some other time. And so we would use one of those 2 for the new window in the office space.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone in this audience wishing to comment? No one? Anyone on Zoom?
Yes, Chair Rios, Stephanie Beninato. One moment. You may unmute, state your name and address for the record, and please wait for Mr. Rubili to swear you in.
Okay, Stephanie Beninato,
And state your address, please.
PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay. Ms. Beninato, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes,
Madam Chair, Ms. Beninato has been sworn.
thank you. I appreciate that the owners need the space enclosed to be able to accommodate growing needs. And I know there are some restrictions on enclosing portals. It is very close to the primary facade, so I think that should be a point of discussion, at least to some extent. And I just find that the roof line looks awkward. And I don't know, obviously they would have to change that, but it just kind of just sticks out there, and it doesn't look to be in harmony with the rest of the lines of the roof. And I wonder also about that carport and how that ever actually really got there. And it's too bad that that can't be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chair Rios, no.
Board members, I will entertain a motion. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Case 2024-007-995 HDRB 125 Duran Street. I move that the project that the board approve the project as submitted, agreeing with staff that exception criteria have been met.
Aguilar Madrano will comment, will second. Can I make a quick comment, Madam Chair? Just to the applicant, I appreciate that you were trying to work with the existing footprint. But if that wasn't fitting your needs, you are allowed to ask to go beyond that. If you just didn't quite have enough space. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. I'm totally fine with the application as is, but you could have asked for an additional 5 feet. I mean, all contingent on setbacks and such, but
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Baldo,
Yes.
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guido,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Madrano,
yes.
Member Bichette. Yes. Madam Chair, it's been approved.
Thank you. Thank you and good luck on your project. Next is 913 and a half Acequia Madre. And I see the applicants are here and this is Paul's case. Paul, may we hear from you?
Evening, Madam Chair, board members, thank you. This evening, this is case number 2024008075 HDRB. 913 and a half Acequia Madre is a single family residence designated as contributing with the north and northeastern facades as primary to the downtown and east side historic district. The structure was reviewed by the HDRB for status 2 times, and the structure was given a contributing historic status on November 28, 2023 and January 9th, 2024. The structure was built in 1940 on a 0.10 acre lot which totals 1,702 square feet. The primary architectural design of the structure is a combination of Spanish Pueblo revival elements, but is overall of a Santa Fe vernacular style. Adobe and concrete block make up the construction materials, and the building is characterized by its flat shed roof, wooden and aluminum single hung 3/1 and 1/1 windows. The structure has had several changes and phases of construction, and with additions throughout its lifetime. The original can be seen at the north and northeastern facades, and these 2 facades demonstrate the integrity of the original structure and its ability to contribute to the downtown and east side historic district. Elements of the humble home, such as the adobe wall construction and recessed 3/1 wood framed windows, convey historic meaning in regard to simple family homes constructed in the east side. The portal over the eastern facade entryway is most likely the first addition to the structure, occurring around the 1950s. As construction continued, additions were made to the southern facade, adding another room and garage by the 1970s. The clear and distinct evolution of the property can be observed through the construction materials. Here's an overview photo of the eastern facade. Here is the northern facade and the northeastern facade. These are the primary facades of the structure. Here is the southern facade and the western facade. Here's historic aerial photographs from 1955 and 1978 showing the evolution of the structure over time. Here is the proposed site plan and the proposed floor plan. Now the applicant proposes the following exterior alterations. I'll go back here to the site plan. The applicant proposes to add a territorial style brick coping at the top of all of the walls and chimneys on the building, including the primary north and northeast facades. Raise height of existing non-primary east wall to 13 feet 6 inches. Remodel the existing 1973 non-primary frame porch in front of the primary northeast facade with a territorial style porch of the same dimensions, including a low stone wall at the east end. Close a historic opening where window F is located. Widen the existing front door opening on the primary facade to 5 feet 4 inches wide and 8 feet high, adding side lights and transom. Replace 3 windows on the primary north facade and 2 windows on the primary northeast facade with painted wood windows with the same light pattern, and remove all non-historic storm windows. Remove the wooden overhangs and add brick coping on top of the existing walls to match the design of the balance of the remodel. New solar panels on roofs. Solar panels will not be visible. 5 new skylights will be added on the roof. Existing garage door to be replaced with new wood board garage door. It will be stained a dark brown wood stain. New 290 square foot portal on the east elevation. Add a new door for a mechanical room on the south elevation. New 6-foot high coyote fencing added to the north, west, and south lot lines. Restucco house in cementitious buckskin. New exterior light fixtures. So this overall site plan shows you where the new addition, the coyote fencing, skylight, solar panels, and additions will take place. Here is the existing and proposed floor plan showing the remodels of the windows, the portal, and the overall design of the home, the current home. Here is the north facade showing the existing and proposed north facade. The existing north facade would be removing 1 historic window and then changing what we currently see into that red brick coping on the roof, changing the whole outlook, the whole look of that northern facade. Here is the east facade. Now this is a pretty modest, humble home, which the board has deemed contributing. And now we have this elaborate territorial style home, changing the complete entry door, the red brick coping, and the whole layout of the home. Here on the south facade, they're changing with the red brick coping, French doors on the back on the south facade, and adding a door. Here on the west facade, they're removing where the laundry room is currently. They're looking at closing it off, putting French doors, and where there is, I believe, there's a sliding glass door. They're looking at closing that off, adding 2 windows and the portal. Yeah, the exterior finishes and fixtures, red brick coping. They got red brick, I guess it would be limestone rock, cementitious buckskin, and white in the porch. So to go back, we'll look at this east facade. So I want to share this communication that I've had with the applicant, just so the board knows that the staff is working with the applicant as best as we can, but to show face with everybody here. So dear Mr. Martinez, staff has reviewed your application and design and have some concerns about the design and exception criteria. Please see my comments below. The overall design of the proposed remodel completely changes the character of the structure. Given that the HDRB granted contributing status to the vernacular style of the structure, with the north facade as primary, warrants further design considerations. The HDRB considered the status of the structure at 2 separate hearings, giving contributing status to the structure. With that being said, the territorial design you have presented is very nice, but because the HDRB gave the structure contributing status for its modest vernacular architectural design, staff cannot recommend approval for the application because of the drastic change of the vernacular style. If the structure was non-contributing, it wouldn't be an issue. However, since it is a contributing structure to the historic downtown and Eastside Historic District, the design needs to insinuate the vernacular style that it holds. Exception criteria 1, 14-5.2D1A. The status of a significant contributing or landmark structure shall be retained and preserved. If a proposed alteration will cause a structure to lose its significant contributing or landmark status, the applicant shall be denied. The removal of historic materials or alteration of architectural features and spaces that embody the status shall be prohibited. The design currently gives a false sense of history. The original structure is contributing because of the modest vernacular design style. Constructing a territorial style structure would deviate from what the HDRB is trying to preserve. All the design options for this vernacular structure have not been considered. Possibly elaborating the vernacular style of the structure would be more sensitive to the contributing style. Removing the red brick coping may help with this design style. Possible considerations of a plain parapeted portal and simplistic front door would accentuate the modest vernacular style. Exception criteria 2, 14-5.2 D2AD. Additions are not permitted to the side of the existing footprint unless the addition is set back a minimum of 10 feet from the primary facade. You will need to consider this criterion to address the height of the parapet on the primary facade. Exception criteria 3, 14-5.2 D2AD. Additions are not permitted to the side of the existing footprint unless the addition is set back a minimum of 10 feet from the primary facade. You will need to use this criterion to address the proposed work on the primary facade, including the portal, front door, windows, and so on. Exception criteria 4, 14-5.2 D5A1. Historic windows should be repaired and restored wherever possible. Historic windows that cannot be repaired or restored shall be duplicated in size, style, and material of the original. Thermal double pane glass may be used. No openings shall be widened or narrowed. This criterion will need to be addressed for the historic windows on the primary facade. The historic window assessment identifies that windows B, C, and G are repairable. Also, you will be considering the window depth. Also, will you be considering the window depth and maintaining the recessed windows? That will need to be taken into consideration. Exception 5, 14-5.2 D5A2. No new opening shall be made where one presently does not exist. This criterion will need to be considered where the design is proposing to create a new openings on the primary facade by the front door. Exception criteria 6, 14-5.2 D5A3. No existing opening shall be closed. This criterion needs to be considered where your design proposes to close historic window openings on the primary facade. Exception criteria 7, 14-5.2 D6. The existing roof styles and materials shall be maintained or replaced in kind if necessary. The addition of dormers or other roof features should be considered when they are existing or historical feature of the structure. This criterion needs to be considered when changing the roof, height of the roof, and red brick coping of the roof. It is important to note that we want to bring this case before the HDRB with the least number of exceptions as possible. With the number of exceptions needed to move forward with this case, a design that reflects what the HDRB has determined as contributing is necessary. Staff does not find that all the exception criteria have been met, but upon further testimony from the applicant, the board may find the exceptions have been met. Staff does not recommend approval of the application as it does not comply with 14-5.2D general design standards for all historic districts. Thank you. Staff stands for questions.
Thank you, Paul, for your report. In looking at this, is one portion of this building the only one there to the left of the porch? Is that the only one that's going to go up in height, or are there other portions of this building that will be raised?
Chair Rios, that is correct.
That is the only one. And would you further describe, the door under the portal to the right of the window? Is that it has a lot of glazing, a lot of glass?
Chair Rios, members of the board, that is correct. They're looking at widening the doorway, adding lights, divided lights, it looks like all around the entire primary facade. Completely changing the look of it.
Thank you. Other questions or comments at this time, board members? Yes, Member Beachside.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few questions about how the exception criteria are laid out, and I'm not sure, just please tell me if there's nothing that can be done at this point because it's already in the staff report, but I'm sort of having some trouble reconciling the statement in the letter you read to us that we wanted to move this forward with the least number of exceptions possible. And when it does have an effect when you see an application come forward with 7 exceptions, you're like, what is happening? But when I looked at each one of these, I feel like I see 2 actually. The way they're split out seems like a deliberate kind of attempt to make this look like it's more of a change than it is. I would argue that exceptions 2, 3, and 7 are the same. They're addition within 10 feet of a primary facade for height, an addition within 10 feet of a primary facade in general, and a height addition on a primary facade. Like those are all having to do with the height roof design exception. And then the exceptions 4, 5, and 6, removal of historic material, changing the front door, and then changing the window. Those are all related to the same changes. And then just in general, and I've said this before when it's come to us, I don't understand the exception for an assertion that the status would change from these revisions. I think that the way I read the code is if the changes that are proposed would result in a downgrade of status, then we cannot approve that, and that there's not an exception to allow that to happen. Unless I'm reading that wrong, I don't think that should be considered as an exception that we would consider granting. Anyway, so I would argue that there's sort of just 2 exceptions to address, but with the same kind of criteria and responses likely. I'm not sure if we should restructure that or try to address all the exception criteria when we look at this.
Chair Rios.
Yes, and
Chair Rios,
also
member
thank-
Beachside. I would say we address each one that is written in the staff report. I believe that is the correct way that staff reviewed this application and it needs to be addressed.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
Yes, Heather.
And Chair Rios, it was not Chair Rios, member Beachside, sorry. It was not any type of attempt to be overzealous or anything like that. When we're looking at the code, we have to address each criterion as a separate criterion. And so, as a matter of practice to ask applicants, well, can we think of it a different way so that it meets the overall intent of what you want to do and you can continue to use the house as a residence? Or is there a way we can just minimize the number of exceptions? That's something that we regularly do. And so I just wanted you to be aware that we really do need to address all those criteria that are impacted as well as separate.
Thank you, Heather. Any other questions or comments? Not applicant or applicants, please come forward and get sworn in.
Richard Martinez,
Okay, Mr. Martinez, what is your address?
P.O. Box 925, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay, and the other applicant?
Joseph Carnes, P O Box 2476, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay, Mr. Martinez and Mr. Carnes, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item should be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury? Madam Chair, Mr. Martinez and Mr. Carnes have been sworn in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Rios, members of the board. Joseph Carnes, I'm here tonight with Richard Martinez, who will speak in just a minute. The property owner, Jay Morton, is out of state tonight and he couldn't attend. But he appreciates your consideration of his application. I'd like to start by first thanking Mr. Duran for his thorough staff report. I do want to point out that the exceptions that were required of this application came from staff based on the design presented. So we were responding to the direction of staff in responding to the exception criteria. Initially, one thing I think that we can all agree on here is that this house is in dire need of a complete renovation and remodel. You all saw it personally. And so that's what we've been working hard to do. The proposed design retains the existing building footprint. I think that's important to keep in mind. There's no proposed interior space expansion. We're keeping the existing historic footprint, which is often not the case, I know, with applications that come before this board. As noted in my letter to the board, which is in your packet, the Historic Overlay Code states that, quote, full responsibility for the design and development of structures is left to the applicant, end quote. In this case, the house has been described in the HCPI and in the staff report in the previous consideration by this board as a ranch style house and a vernacular style house, neither of which is mentioned in the downtown and east side design standards. In his HCPI, Mr. Murphy stated that the additions to the house have a, quote, Pueblo revival appearance based on 3 factors: brown stucco walls, a flat roof, and rounded parapets. That's it. The proposed design will retain the flat roof and the brown stucco walls. The 2 primary stylistic proposed changes are adding brick parapets at the top of the walls and adding a territorial style front entry porch and door. And given the existing vernacular style, these require exceptions, as Mr. Duran explained. In rejecting Mr. Murphy's recommendation that the house remain non-contributing, 2 board members noted that renovations can occur and exceptions can be requested. In this case, considering that the code's direction that the applicant retain full responsibility for the design, we ask that the board consider the design presented, the retention of the historic footprint, and how the design harmonizes with the existing streetscape, which, as you saw this morning, I think includes a territorial style garage just to the north of the property. This renovation will add to the historic architectural design qualities that are significant for the district in a style that is addressed by the code, in contrast to the ranch house vernacular style, which is not. Mr. Martinez is going to speak to the design, and we ask for your approval of the application, which is supported by 4 neighborhood residents who submitted letters that are in your packet tonight. And I'll be happy to stand for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Carnes at this time? It appears not. Richard, we'll hear from you.
Thank you. We are here asking for exceptions because the chairwoman, Cecilia, of this committee said that we should do so in order to get approval for any renovation. Several times, the staff report mentions that the proposed design gives a false sense of history. That's a quote. We are not trying to give a false sense of history. Territorial style is a natural evolution of vernacular houses in Santa Fe. I want to quote from the report, Continuity and Connection, which was published by or produced by the Historic Preservation Division staff on March of 2021, which, quote, serves as a pre-planning report, which is intended to inform and guide development of a heritage preservation plan for the city of Santa Fe. In the section, Periods of Santa Fe Development, the territorial period subsection states, quote, architecturally, the American influence initially manifested with the greater availability of mill doors and windows, and eventually with brick and variety in the domestic floor plan. The style galvanized in the 1880s in the territorial building. Quote, a vernacular interpretation of earlier American forms. This was a natural evolution of what the Santa Fe houses became in order to continue to be in the historic district and reflect the Santa Fe style. I would also like to quote from the publication Design and Preservation in Santa Fe, which was written by the planning department of the city of Santa Fe in 1977. Under the, in the territorial style section, it states, it was not New Mexican, it was Eastern and of the Greek revival manner. Experience the lack of quantity of Eastern building materials and only the very beginnings of a milled lumber industry forced a merging of this Pueblo Spanish style elements with the Greek revival. That's how territorial came to be. It's not that we're trying to make a house that's in that time. It's in that tradition. This house was deemed contributing because not because of its design style. The staff report says, and you heard it tonight from the staff, quote, the original structure is contributing because of the modest vernacular design style. And that's not true, because this house was determined contributing for two reasons. It was because of its footprint that hadn't changed, and because of its building materials, which was adobe. It wasn't style. As you recall, the report by John Murphy, by the historian, says the oldest portions of the house, the adobe east-west bedroom wing at the north, is at least 80 years old. Its plain east and north elevations show original windows and reveal mostly unaltered exterior appearance. To this were attached several additions, the most recent from circa 1976, connecting the older home to a once freestanding garage. The composite development of the building gives it a ranch house appearance. Given the recent extensions and the fact that they represent a good deal of the house's square footage and footprint, the recommendation is to maintain non-contributing status to the downtown East Side Historic District. The historian of the house was recommending non-contributing status. It was deemed here in this committee to be historic because it retained its footprint and historic materials, the adobe in the walls, because the window report states that there are historic windows, but those windows are rotted, and in order to save the walls, it's in the report, in order to save the walls, those windows need to be replaced. And so the contributing status was not for simple vernacular style, it was for footprint and building materials. I want to say that vernacular style is, by definition, something that is built by the owner of the house, not designed by an architect or approved by a historic committee. Once we're involved, once there's an architect designed house approved by a historic committee, it is no longer vernacular. By definition, that I cannot design a vernacular house. It's not possible. And this committee cannot approve a vernacular house. And so the design of the house being in territorial style seems like it's a natural update of the house within the regulations of Santa Fe. It is one of the recognized design styles in the historic district, not the vernacular. And so that's what we did. We have received actually 6 letters and emails of support, 4 of which are in your packet. These are letters of support from neighbors that we had. You can read those, but basically, I want to read the one from the neighbor across the street. We live at 919 Acequia Madre, directly opposite their property across our narrow dirt road. And so we are among the residents most impacted by this building. We understand that the board had previously ruled part of the structure is contributing, which would mean that the intended plan of renovation would not be feasible. We strongly urge the board to reconsider this ruling, given its practical implications for this renovation. The current structure is dilapidated and has been abandoned for several years. Also, it suffers from an ill-conceived 70s addition. The application of Morton and Phillips proposes to make a significant investment to bring the building back to life and improve its overall appearance while respecting the older adobe remnant. Importantly, the proposal would rehabilitate the adobe part of the house and in a wholly coherent style consistent with the neighborhood. Moreover, the renovation works within the existing footprint does not materially change the mass of the structure. We note that only change to the mass is the ceiling and he means the roof, raised the parapets, not the roof, raised by a couple of feet where the 70s addition was made. We would very much like the application to move forward and fear that if the current owners are not allowed to do so, that the current or future owner would not be able to make the sizable and necessary investment required to address the condition of the house and would be forced to leave its current sad and unattractive state. Signed Cecilia Baldwin and Bruce Catania. Thank you. With that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Board members, do you have questions or comments at this time? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for the presentations. Appreciate both of them and all of the materials that you provided as well. It just seems to me, and this is obvious, I guess I'll just say it. I think we're just talking tonight about a style issue, right? I mean, that's all this whole dispute is about. So for example, the last letter that was read, you wouldn't deny that all the renovations that are desired here to make the house livable could be made in a non-territorial style house, right? So there's no real danger of it not being able to be renovated. It's just whether it should be renovated in a different style than it currently exists. And I just feel constrained by the fact that that train has left the station here by virtue of the fact that twice the board designated this structure as contributing, for better or for worse. That's what we're looking at now. So that requires 7 exceptions in order to change the style. And it does seem to me unequivocal that that change to territorial style would cause the building to lose its contributing status because of the fact, as you pointed out, the status is based on, I don't think just the fact that it's made out of adobe, but its current configuration, what it looks like today. I would disagree that it's either ranch style. That I don't think is even arguable with a flat roof. And I would also disagree that it's purely vernacular. It seems to me that especially the original part of the house is classical Santa Fe style. It's almost the definition of it. It's an adobe house made by hand, long and low, deep reveals, flat roof with a parapet. I mean, it literally checks every box of an old Santa Fe style house. What's happened, of course, is there have been additions to it that have certainly not added to its attractiveness. No, I don't think anyone would argue about that. So I feel very constrained in even considering the possibility of changing it to a completely different style. And I do think the issue in the evolution aspect and the false sense of history parts of the ordinance that you alluded to It's not, in my mind, that's not intended to be directed at a false sense of history about the evolution of Santa Fe style in general throughout the district, but rather a false sense of history with respect to this specific building. And I do believe that changing it at this late state from what was a very humble version of old Santa Fe style to a very attractive and very professionally and architecturally designed territorial style would very definitely create a false sense of history to anyone that was looking at this. They would have no idea. They would think that it had always been built in that style and would have no idea that underneath that was a Spanish Pueblo style original home. So I just don't know how we could get to where you want to go, but I really strongly feel that everything that seems desirable about renovating this into a beautiful home could still be done, but just respecting the original style that it's made in. And I know that you're a gifted architect and would be able to do that in a beautiful way. And I would love to see that. And I noticed on our site visit that that street actually has it's still rather humble. There's a few larger homes, but basically it's very similar to the existing building. Some of them are a little bit more renovated, but they're almost all, with the exception of that one small garage next door and one addition down the street, they're all Spanish Pueblo style. So I do think that this a Spanish Pueblo style house renovation would be much more in keeping with the harmony of the streetscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Benvenu. Other comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Heather.
Thank you, Chair Rios. I'd just like to make a couple of clarifications. First of all, I think the intent of staff was the use of ranch style was to say a one-story building, and we're going to stop using a ranch style. We talked about this, and it's intended to be one story as it is currently. The other thing is on the definition of a vernacular, I think what we're referring to is a vernacular building of Santa Fe style or recent Santa Fe style. So vernacular means architecture created from mostly local materials by and for the use of local people. Vernacular architecture responds to local methods of building construction, climates, living needs, and traditions. As local environments evolve over time, so does vernacular architecture. So this represents an older local tradition, and then for better or worse, the 1970s edition also represents local materials that were available at the time and construction techniques. So just wanted to clarify that. And so we will study our use of terminology and make sure that we're consistent going forward. But I just thought that might be helpful to you. And then relative to the question that Member Beachlight asked regarding the status. So there would be an exception, but if it is the decision of the board to approve this project, then the applicant would have to come back for a status review hearing for the downgrade, because there are special unique notice requirements and such that aren't required with this hearing. Then we would require a subsequent hearing to address that particular issue as well.
Can I address what was said?
Sure.
Ranch style is not necessarily the staff. I don't blame the staff. It's in the historian's report. So that's his term. And also in terms of this the status, it wasn't intended that we in any way would affect the status. We're not affected. The status was based on the footprint and the building materials, and we're not doing either one. It was not based on the old Santa Fe style by the ruling of this board.
Other questions or comments, board members? Yes, Member Beachlight.
Yeah, just a couple of comments, I guess. I want to acknowledge that this design you know, what, I did not vote to make this contributing. I had a different opinion, but I certainly respect the board's decision on that. But I think it's quite exceptional in this neighborhood and with these properties that there's not an addition of square footage, and that the portion of the building that was original, that we sort of focused our discussion on when we designated status is largely unchanged. So that's the north facade and the northeast facade. I mean, the windows per the assessment are not savable, but the windows seem to be replicated in terms of their original look on this design. For the historian, that was the portion that was worthy of preservation, perhaps. But I think the assessment was that the additions, that overwhelmed the original square footage and gave it the ranch house appearance, rendered that his recommendation to be non-contributing. I think that the design, I mean, should you have the opinion that the accreditive additions are important, they're still there. You can totally see where, and even accentuated with the height of the middle block. I think that stands out in my mind as a pretty sensitive alteration of a house that clearly needs a renovation. Those are just my opinions.
And it brings everything together, I feel.
So Richard, in your territorial styles design, are the corners of this house now going to be crisp, or are they still going to be more rounded?
Going to be more rounded. They're not going to change from what they are.
And other than the evolution that you indicated that you were going through, that this house would be going through, that you indicated, were you not inspired, or did you think about not making it territorial at any point in your design, or was this?
Yes, of course. Yes.
You did?
Yes. The issue is that parts of this house, the non-Adobe parts of this house, one is built with block and one is frame. And so I think that it's going to be very hard to integrate those in that style. And so that's why this style has been chosen, because this style, I think, can take the variety of construction techniques and bring them all together. I think it would be very difficult because those parts, the framed part and the block part, which are both right on the street as well, are never going to be as rounded as the Adobe walls are going to be, and try to make them look like Adobe is going to be difficult. Maybe, I mean, I can always see whether a building is frame or Adobe, no matter what. I know I can tell. I think most of the members of this board can tell which buildings are actually, which are authentic and which are not. So.
And Richard, can you talk to us a little bit further about that front door? And,
oh, yes.
And all the glazing?
Yeah. So so in the original, behind that front door was the living room. And that was dark because this portal had been put on the outside that kept the light from going in. Now we're making the room behind the frame portion, the taller part. That's a big room. We're making that the living room and the dining room, and we're putting the kitchen into where the garage was before. So the old rooms are, because they're so cut up, it's going to be just an entryway and not a full living room. And I'm trying to get some more light into that room. And so that's why the the door with the glass around it. And also, it's hard to see in these drawings, but on the inside, we're lowering the floor because it was built on a crawl space, and we're putting a slab with brick floors. So they're going to be lower than they are right now. And so I need to go down, and that's the little stone wall that you see at the entryway. And then the door has to start lower. And so as you can see, the glass on top, it works very well. The glass on top fits the existing door top, even though I'm lowering the door. So it still lines up with the window beside it. And I just think that's a beautiful way. So a transom and then a glass door down below, which is in the style of this territorial house that we're doing, that is not bigger than existing. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. It's still the same size as the existing house, but I'm lowering the floor and I'm getting more light into that.
Thank you, Richard. This question is for Paul. Is your assessment is that if this building, the territorial style building, goes through, this house will lose its contributing status, correct?
Chair Rios, members of the board, that is correct.
Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As an architect in this community, I'm a little, I share Member Beachide's concerns about process. Seeing a case with a small house with 7 exceptions cited. I'll start at the beginning though, in terms of the process that I'm seeing on this process, which seems to be fitting a larger pattern. You know, the issue of the status of the house was not twice approved by the board. It was twice contested in front of the board. The final decision, and the one that counts, was a 3-2 vote on the status of the house. After the applicants and the owners of the house paid for a lengthy report from an architectural historian, staff disagreed with that report. And didn't offer a great deal of evidence, and the post-rationalization that we're hearing tonight, like, oh, it's not really ranch, and it's not, we don't really mean vernacular, we mean you know, Santa Fe style, is just that, it's post-rationalization. If staff believe that the historic preservation specialist that wrote the report was incorrect and did so based on a vernacular style, that this house represents a vernacular style, that's kind of, you know, ill-defined in our experience with how we status buildings in Santa Fe. It points to larger issues, of course, with the way that we manage status in our historic districts, because we don't have statements of significance for the districts. We don't have periods of significance for the districts. So we are kind of rudderless, and that invites this kind of uninformed opinion, in my view, of what actually makes a house contributing to a district. It often doesn't hinge on period of construction, style of construction. It hinges often on a lot of personal feelings that are expressed both by staff and by members of the public in this room. And I would hope that at some point, especially with a code rewrite, that we can get to a better place, especially since we have the underpinning documents in National Register district nominations for the districts. I think that happened in this case. I didn't agree that this was a contributing structure. I certainly wouldn't agree that it would be contributing based on the idea that it's old, just old, or that it is, you know, representing a, you know, a humble vernacular style, which was brought up again and again, and why this is a non-compliant design. That's not defined in our code either. And so I really object to the statusing of the house, but we're past that at this point. It grinds the gears to say that, you know, like, oh, well, we really meant Santa Fe style, when then that's not true. I think also I'm concerned about staff's overzealousness in applying exceptions. And I would characterize this as obstructionist. We saw this very same pattern on the O'Keeffe Museum from the same staff member, a kind of defensive statusing of a project, an over lengthy application of unnecessary, and it was unanimously decided by this board that the exceptions were unnecessary in that case. And a real unwillingness to work with the applicant. And that's alarming. I don't understand exactly what the city's upside is in that scenario, but it's certainly not producing a district that we say we want to be more equitable to applicants and more diverse in terms of the expression that we have in those districts. It's creating a lot of expense for applicants. It's creating a lot of resistance on the part of the city to talented members of its architectural community to doing good work in the districts. And I find that very offensive. I think it's wrong. Now, there may be, as Member Beachlight pointed out, one or two exceptions that may be required in this case tonight, but it's certainly not 7. To me, that's completely out of line. And I think that, the way that the staff member in this case has framed the exceptions has made it impossible for any design to meet a standard. Both in the statusing of the project, we got a personal opinion rather than a kind of professional, in contrast to a professional recommendation. And I think likewise, we heard a lot of personal opinion tonight and value judgments on what the house looked like, what the status of the owners were, and that it was no longer his definition of a modest vernacular style house. And so it did not fit his personal standards in this case. And nobody can win in that scenario. Yes, there are problems in the way that the code is written. We do need to be clearer about our values in this community and what stands, but we can't let that lack of clarity lead to arbitrary and personal standards. Richard, I'm assuming you don't get to pick which staff member you work with on a case or ask for another one if that staff member is not working.
Point of order. Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been a lengthy harangue that's highly personal, unprofessional, and is directed inappropriately, not only to members of the public, but members on the board, but more specifically in this case now, members of our staff. I think it's extremely inappropriate. It's not allowed by our rules, and it should be stopped.
I agree with you, and this has happened more than once. And I talked to you about this, Anthony, last time. This is an evaluation. Our staff does an evaluation, and they do an intense, deep evaluation simply because it does not meet with what you think it should be. You cannot be harassing the public or even a member of this board that sides on the side of staff. That is just unprofessional.
Madam Chair, I am reflecting on process.
No, you are reflecting on, you are
I
having
wholeheartedly
personal.
disagree, Madam Chair, and I disagree with you, Member Benvenu. I'm not making a personal attack on Paul Duran. I am pointing out ways in which the city is not being fair to applicants
You are indicating in this evaluation, you are indicating that staff is simply going, and other people with their quote unquote feelings. When I'm hearing staff give a thorough, long report that I feel he has been investigating and evaluating to the best of his ability and bringing that before the board.
I don't agree.
And
I don't agree. This case, the treatment of the applicant by staff in this case is quite different from what we see from other applications and cases. That's both true on the statusing and on the design application review. My attack is not personal on Mr. Duran. I am talking, I may be addressing professionalism of staff. I may be addressing the application of our code in part that's being done unfairly, in my view.
Point
I
of
am
order,
not
Madam
making
Chair.
a personal
I really
attack.
think this needs to be ended. This has gone on much too long. It's inappropriate and it needs to stop.
If you want to continue in reference to the application that is before us, in reference to the architectural style, and if you want to make your comments in reference to that, please go ahead.
I will finish my comments about this case. I think that there may be an issue of a style exception on this project that we could review tonight. And certainly, as Member Beachide pointed out, 2 exceptions, one for distance from a primary facade and loss of historic material. We can review those 3, but those are the only exception criteria that I see fit. I still stand by my comments that I made earlier, and I don't appreciate not being able to address applicant process in this room. It's part of my role on this committee as an architect and a member of the design community. And I think it's entirely valid.
And I want to say something. I didn't intend at all to work outside of the code. Everything that I did was within the code, and I had all the exception criteria that the staff required answered. So to the best of our ability, and the number of the memo that was just read by the staff was a memo that didn't seem to acknowledge that we had already answered all of those exception criteria, and it added one more. So before we came to this committee, I met with the staff and I showed them our design and I asked them what was the criteria that we would have to meet, because I knew that there would be something because it was deemed contributing. And there were 6 identified. And then after we made our application, then there was another one. So there were 7. So that's why I got a lawyer involved, because exception criteria are beyond my my pay grade. I'm an architect. I'm not a person who is able to answer those basically legal questions. And so I need to have an attorney help me with that. But I intended always to work within the regulations. And I believe that the plan or the design that I'm presenting to you works within those regulations. So I hope and I pray that this will be acceptable to this committee, even though of the staff report, because I believe that we did actually answer the exception criteria in every case. And besides what the report, despite what the report says. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, Heather.
Chair Rios, I would just like to make a clarification on a couple of things. Thank you. So with reference to staff recommendations, these reports and this analysis is vetted by the entire team. It's not just one staff person. And so I would like to make clear that when you refer to staff, it's all of us. And what the second thing is that in section, the section that deals with exceptions, it says staff shall determine whether an exception to the section is required. So it's not up to the purview of the board to determine whether an exception is required. It is staff's determination. As your professional staff, we look at the code, we vet it. Mr. Ruby Lead also is part of the conversation. He also reviews the reports. So, you know, if Mr. Rubley would disagree with us on the nature of an exception, then most certainly we would edit the report accordingly. So, at this point, the exceptions should not be randomly removed like they were in a different case. They should be addressed. And I do appreciate the fact that the applicant did address the exception criteria. That's not an issue at hand here. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you for those comments and your clarification. Board members, do you have anything further to add or question? Member Aguilar Medrano.
Madam Chair, I will just add some comments about the case at hand only. So first, by starting, I really appreciate that you kept the existing footprint of the house. You know, that's usually not the case in renovations. I also, like Member Beacheye pointed out, I like that the massing is maintained, even though you are raising the roof. You can see where those different iterations of the building evolved over time. The other thing I like, if the roof is to be raised, as it's shown here, I like that that actually de-emphasizes the portion of the garage. Obviously, the garage door is a great improvement to the existing one. So those are all things that I think are working really well. And in general, of course, it's a very harmonious, nice, you know, and balanced design. So no, none of my comments forthcoming are in any way a reflection of that I don't like this design. My only concern is, as Member Bienvenu stated, if we were to approve this tonight, I do share the concern that the status would be affected only because there are so many different things being changed. So we're changing the roof line, removing historic material, changing openings, there's the style. And I don't necessarily have issue with any of these, you know, one things. I think I'm sure we can come to a compromise. I think it's just all of those things adding together, and how much this facade is changing, that's maybe where there's some tension, but I'm sure that we could come to a compromise, because it is a nice design. I think the style and the contributing status is what we're wrestling with tonight. Thank you, Richard. Nice packet as always.
So if there are no further questions or comments, I will ask for public comment. Anyone in this audience wishing to comment, please come forward. Please state your name and your address, and Attorney Rubalid will swear you in.
Bob Gavin, 117 Arroyo Hondo Road, Santa Fe.
Thank you. Ms. Gavin, do you promise and swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Ms. Gavin has been sworn.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair and Board, regardless of how nice a design this is, and regardless of how this house achieved its status, it just seems to me that because it is contributing, you can't really separate the style from the footprint and the materials. It's all one and the same. And I don't see how, if you vote to accept this change in style, how it cannot be demoted to non-contributing. And that doesn't seem like the role of the board, I guess, is to change the contributing status to non-contributing. That's just how it looks to me from listening to all of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in this room wishing to comment on this particular project? No one else. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Yes, Chair Rios, Stephanie Beninato, who has already been sworn.
Stephanie Beninato, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think that, first of all, I heard that there was a 1973 aerial. I thought that's what we were shown, and the entire footprint of the house was there, so that would make it more than 50 years old. I think the roof line, I support Member Bienvenu's comments and the woman just before me, that I really don't think that if you allow the style to change, that it can retain its contributing status. And I think that a lot of the renovations, or most of them, could occur without that change in style.
And to say that it evolved generally in over time in Santa Fe as an accepted style is absolutely true, but this is a particular property. Also, I think that there's so much emphasis put on John Murphy's reports as if he's the historian, as if he's the only historian or the only legitimate point of view. I think that there has to be deference to other points of view and to staff. And oh, one more thing about the design before I say that. In terms of that very wide door with the lights around it, there are going to have skylights, and certainly the skylights could substitute for all the glass around the front door. And in terms of, so again, John Murphy's not the be all and end all of what makes a building historic or what facade should or shouldn't be, or, you know, whether he thinks an addition from 55 years ago should be actually preserved or not. And although Mr. Guida, Member Guida, didn't think that he was attacking staff, I can tell you from sitting here and hearing it, it really came across as a very personal attack, very unprofessional, and I really appreciated Walt's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
No, Chair, yes, thanks.
Members of this board, I am ready to entertain a motion. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Case 2024-008-075 HDRB 913.5 Acequia Madre. I move that the board approve the project as submitted, finding that all of the exception criteria have been met for all exceptions.
Each I have a second. And just to add a comment that I don't think the house as is has an identifiable style. I think that's the proposed renovations unify and define a style with a respectful treatment of existing elements, like the garage door that's no longer a garage, but presents that way with the preservation of the window placement and designs, and the effort to lower the floor so that the overall height and massing of the building is unchanged, respecting the original footprint.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other additions? Roll call vote, please.
Member Valdo,
No.
Member Benvenu,
No.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Madrano,
No.
Member Bichette.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion did not pass.
Thank you. I will entertain another motion. Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Case number 2024-008-075 HDRB 913.5 Acequia Madre. I move that findings be entered that the exception criteria have not been met as set forth in the staff report, and that the proposal would constitute changes that create a false sense of historical development, as well as cause the structure to lose its contributing status. And on that basis, have conclusions of law be entered that the application is therefore denied.
Do I hear a second?
Mastrano will second.
Roll call vote?
Member Valdo,
Yes.
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida.
Nope.
Member Madeline Madrano,
Yes.
and Member Bichette.
No.
Madam Chair, it has been approved.
So
Denied.
your application was denied. It doesn't mean that you cannot come back before us, as you know, Richard,
Yes.
or you can appeal it to the city council. But I would encourage you to come back before us. I think you're a
Why
good,
into, yes.
I think you're a good architect, and I think that you can revisit this and come back, because really there were a lot of points that were really good. One of them being that you didn't expand on the footprint, and there were, so I hope to see you again.
Is it the opinion of this board that any territorial style building that wasn't built in the 1880s during the territorial period is a false sense of history?
Are you indicating that this, are you asking the question if this
That's what it
is,
said.
that this should not be territorial style?
Any territorial style building in Santa Fe that was not built in the 1880s conveys a false sense of history?
No, I don't think that that's what they were trying to.
That's why we have territorial revival style, right?
Right.
So, you know,
But
Madam Chair.
my building was
Madam
not
Chair.
recognized as territorial revival style, right? It was territorial style.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
My opinion is, with respect to Robert's Rules of Order, to continue to debate a project after the vote has been rendered is out of order. With respect to Mr. Martinez, who I agree is a consummate professional, I don't think it is appropriate for the board to continue the debate after the vote has been rendered.
Thank you for indicating that. Richard, you're going to get us into trouble. Okay. Hope to see you in the future. We have a last case this evening, which is located at 929 Canyon Road. This is Lanny's case, or also known as Ramon. Sorry, Ramon.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is case 2023-008137-HDRB 929 Canyon Road. The applicant seeks approval for new construction. What you're looking at here is a view of where the residence would be off of just beyond that low wall to the left. This is a view from Canyon Road. This would be a new single family house in the downtown and East Side Historic District, north of Canyon Road and south of East Alameda. The vacant lot is outlined here in red. The view from Canyon Road is on the left. The view of the lot looking northeast on the right on a snowy day. View of the lot of looking northwest on the left, a view of the lot from East Alameda looking south on the right. You can see the Santa Fe River in the foreground. The proposed site plan has been approved by zoning. The proposed floor plan. I will let the architect who's tonight go into more in depth of on the design if you have any questions on that. The east, starting from the top to the bottom, east elevation, north elevation, west elevation, and south elevation. I would consider this kind of a modern Santa Fe style, recent Santa Fe style. I'd also like to point out that the windows do have divided lights and they meet the 30 by 30 rule. These are elevations showing the existing walls. And there's a proposed north wall that would run along, that would kind of obscure the view somewhat from East Alameda Boulevard. This is a rather bad picture of the material board, but I believe the architect brought actual samples here tonight. Staff does not find that all exception criteria have been met, but the board may find that they have upon further testimony testimony. Staff also finds that the proposed stucco color, stove kindling, the use of black accents, and the use of steel columns inappropriate for the downtown and east side historic district, and particularly off of Canyon Road. With that, I can take any questions.
Can you describe that color, stove kindling?
We have a sample of it here. It's kind of a charcoal color.
Okay. Is that within the approved color, earth tone colors?
No, it's not.
And how much steel are they proposing to use?
I'll let the architect get into the details of the design, but it's my understanding the pergola and portals would be constructed out of steel.
Thank you. Any clarification or any other type of questions for Ramon? Member Aguilar Medrano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report, Ramon. You mentioned the 6-foot high wall, correct, along the river. What is the calculated wall height for this property?
6 feet.
Thank you.
I'd also like to point out that that wall has a stone base and wrought iron kind of ornamental treatment above it. So
6 feet in total, though, including those 3 different materials.
2 different.
Sorry, 2 different. Okay.
That's correct. Member Madam Chair and Member Hadley.
It's a mouth.
It's getting late.
Is that wall going to have any see-through?
Yes.
Yes.
So the base would be, I'll let the architect go into the description of the actual design, but the base would be stone. And then it would have a wrought iron feature above. So it's, I believe it's 3 feet of stone and then 3 feet of wrought iron above that. So you'd be able to see right through there. Yes.
Okay. Board members, other questions? Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ramon, the exception is for what exactly?
The exception is for the metal being used, the use of steel at the portal and the pergola.
Is steel specifically precluded from the recent Santa Fe style on the east side and downtown historic district?
I'm gonna have to phone a friend for that.
Okay. And is black paint specifically or the color black specifically precluded from?
The windows are intended to be aluminum clad in black. The color that stove kindling is not on the list of approved colors for that district.
Okay. And you know, that's obviously not in the code per se, but that's in some of the documents that we've produced. But I guess my question is use of steel. I don't see that being not allowed under recent Santa Fe style, which you said this building is. And I guess black accents would fall into that same category as stucco color.
Madam Chair and Member Guida, I believe that's true. And as far as the use of steel, I'm going to ask if Heather or Gary can help me out with that question.
Chair Rios, Member Guida, I would just refer to the standards for recent Santa Fe style. And, you know, it's intended to achieve harmony with historic buildings by retention of a similarity of materials, color, proportion, and general detail. And so with reference to the overall, you know, standards, I would refer to the, I'm just glancing through for one moment. So the reference to portals, really it doesn't say, it's not very material specific like in other districts, but there is supposed to be a similar materials, color, proportion, and detail to those buildings of historic construction.
And Heather, thank you for the response. As I read it, you know, and as I know, we've approved steel before in the downtown and east side historic districts without exception. That is a component of buildings that we've approved under recent Santa Fe style. So it exists if the standard is that it exists, then, you know, it does exist in the downtown and east side historic district and buildings of recent Santa Fe style. And then, you know, under those things, the item D says no less than 80% of the surface area of any publicly visible facade should be Adobe finish, or stucco simulating Adobe finish. That has to do with the cladding of the building, of course, not the details of porches and other columns and stuff like that. It goes on to say that the balance of the publicly visible facade, except as above, may be of natural stone, wood, brick, tile, terracotta, or other material subject to approval as hereinafter provided for building permits. So I don't see an exclusion of metal anywhere in the standards for recent Santa Fe style. So I guess I question whether an exception is required at all in this case. I mean, we do approve aluminum clad windows all the time. That is metal, and we use on both old Santa Fe style and recent Santa Fe style.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
Attorney
think
Rubeline.
this is an issue that came up with respect to, I believe it was a rear portal, and I think that address may have been 730 Alameda. The board required and made the decision that the portal that was built on that house did not meet old Santa Fe style, even though the structure was more modern or recent Santa Fe style. Under subsection E, subsection 2, recent Santa Fe style under 14-5.2. Subsection E reads, the publicly visible facade of any building of any adjoining wall shall, except as otherwise provided, talks about colors, and it goes on to read that windows, doors, and portals and publicly visible portions of the buildings and walls shall be one of the old Santa Fe styles, except that buildings with portals may have larger plate glass windows under the portals. So we have old Santa Fe style and recent Santa Fe style, but what is important with respect to things like portals on publicly visible portions of the buildings, they have to be old Santa Fe style, even if the rest of the building is recent Santa Fe style. Old Santa Fe style under E1A reads that exterior portals projecting vigas or roof beams, canales, or waterspouts, flanking buttresses, and wooden lintels, architraves, and cornices, all of which, as well as doors, are frequently carved, and the carving may be picked out with bright colors. So I do believe that the code expresses at least a preference for wooden architectural elements.
Thank you. Member Beachley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have always understood our approval for use of metal and steel to be based on it's an authentic material that was historically available. And just thinking about where this house is located, we've just approved a house on Alameda that is on our nomination list that uses black steel on its portal. I probably can see this house from this lot. There's a house on Canyon, probably just across the driveway from this house that we approved a metal pergola that is rust colored, a couple of different metal elements, gates and pergolas. That's a contributing house, not new construction. So I feel like if we start to differentiate now, we're run the risk of being quite inconsistent about our past approvals of metal elements, including steel on portals and pergolas.
Just hold on a minute. I think that the use of metal should be scrutinized very carefully, especially on porches. I think that simply because this board has approved metal in the past, that's to me a very dangerous precedent that has been set in some very limited cases. And I think that we should follow what Attorney Rubeli just read, that we should go with the old Santa Fe style, or even what does recent Santa Fe style indicate? Do you use recent materials, or do you try to emulate the old, what has been in existence here, which has made this community what it is today, the special community that it is, using the elements that have been here, wood, Wood is something that has been used, and even the colors. Are we going to stray from those colors and allow other colors that are, in my opinion, extreme to this district? I am not a voting member of the board, but I only vote if there is a tie. But those are my comments, and I do feel very strongly about them. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Frank, thank you for pointing out the last item under recent Santa Fe style. It does point us back towards the old Santa Fe style, which is a very strange aspect of the way that the styles are defined or lack definition. I would agree that a preference for wood is expressed under the old Santa Fe style requirements, in addition to carving and handwork and a whole bunch of other things. But it does not constitute an exclusion of metal or imply an exclusion of metal for the recent Santa Fe style. We have repeatedly had this debate as a board about when the code, the letter of the code, forces the one publicly visible window to be divided light, but everything else in the house is of a piece and of a considered design. And we've allowed for those conditions to be allow those conditions to play out and not required things that get trapped up in the letter of our problematic code. Recognizing that design, it's better to have consistent design of a building rather than a kind of paint by numbers hodgepodge AI version that the code spits out. And I think we've done that again and again. Metal is a part of even old Santa Fe style when we think about territorial buildings, pitched roof adobes, all of those things. Roof materials are metal. So it's a material of the 19th century, one that is well within the purview of the old Santa Fe style. And then as far as recent Santa Fe style, again, I don't see a exclusion for this, and I don't see a need for an exception in this case.
Thank you, Member Guida. Any other comments or questions? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think we have here, when we talk about metal as a material in this district, there are sort of two things that are in play. One is just the columns, because that is specifically called out in our ordinance. And in addition to the provision that the city attorney read, there's also a previous sentence in the same subsection for Old Santa Fe style that refers to exterior portals, the edges of which are supported by wooden columns. So that's twice in that Old Santa Fe style definition. It's wooden columns is either expressly or impliedly referred to as being a component of the style. I agree, though. I don't think it literally says you could never have anything but wood. So I do think there's potentially some room for interpretation there, which leads to the other issue, which is recent Santa Fe style is defined as using similarity. I think you have in your report. It intends to achieve harmony with historic buildings by retention of a similarity of materials, color, proportion, and general detail. So to me, it's relatively clear and straightforward that wooden columns in particular for portals are expected, absent unusual circumstances in this particular district. And I would say that's true for most other detail on the buildings. I wouldn't use the word metal generically, because I do think that some things that are metal, like corrugated roofing materials, can certainly be found to be historic in our district. But I do think that heavy duty steel, because not only of the material being not historically used in this district, but also its literal appearance of having extreme amount of weight as compared to a natural material is just not harmonious. And we do relatively routinely deny the use of steel in visible locations in this particular district. The one case on Alameda, I believe, actually was that was approved over my objection, but it was appealed, and I believe that the applicant changed those metal columns to wood in order to resolve the appeal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that's the case. And then certainly there have been a few isolated other examples of where, for one reason or another, certain heavy-duty steel elements have crept into the east side. But I do think that that is something that should be paid very close attention to. And in this case, I would agree with staff's recommendations.
Any other questions or comments? If not, applicant, will you please come forward and get sworn in? State your name and address.
Sir, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalties of perjury? Madam Chair, the applicant has been sworn.
We're here to listen to whatever you have to tell us.
Thank you. I think Ramon's done an incredible job describing the project and, the issues that I'm sure you will have with it. I want to begin by saying this is the 5th house that I have designed for this client in the downtown and east side historic district for the last 25 years. 2 of them, this being the second one, new construction. The other 3 renovations of historic buildings. One of which he's living in right now. It's 717 Acequia Madre, immediately next to the outdoor classroom that was brought up earlier. It's all steel. And another one on Delgado received a historic preservation award 10 years ago. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, so there's no doubt about her sensitivity to the historic district. That's what I'm trying to say. She does have a penchant for modern design. There's no doubt about it. She likes clean lines and, maybe not traditional colors in the area, but I mean, the proportions and use of the steel in particular do mimic what would be there if it was wood. The columns could be 2 inches by 2 inches steel, but that obviously would look, horrendous. So using 8 by 8 tube steel columns and 12-inch deep smooth beams where the wooden beams would be doesn't seem to be that great of a departure. And recent Santa Fe style, in my opinion, 30 years of designing buildings in this town, is an evolution of Santa Fe style and a modest use of steel in a portal that cannot be seen publicly. The entry portal is not visible publicly, actually. And the pergola, only from Alameda, is visible through that wrought iron. So from that distance, given that the proportions of all the beams, columns are identical to wood, we didn't think that it was that great of a departure. We introduced the stone wall as river rock with wrought iron above it to kind of tie it in to the river and, the adjacent walls and fences. The house itself, not really visible from anywhere except Alameda through the trees. And it's designed, to meet the client's aesthetic desires. So having said that, take questions.
I do want to say that on the site visit, I do want to thank you because you put up story poles and then you chalked the delineation. And that was really helpful, I think.
We always try to do that.
Yeah, I think that in other instances, people or applicants have put up story poles, but I don't think that I have ever seen a property chalked to the exact footprint.
And the poles
As-
were located at the corners. of-
Yeah, so I thank you for that. That was very helpful. In reference to the division of the windows, are those more, am I reading this correctly? They are more horizontal as opposed to vertical?
Where we could do it and meet the 30 inch diagonal rule. So few of the windows are larger, like the kitchen and living room windows. So we do have verticals in those ones.
And on this elevations, can you point out where where is the front porch? Oh, right over there. I see it on the, yeah. Mhm. Other questions or comments, board members? Member Richa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I don't have any issue with the use of steel, especially in new construction. But I do think the stucco color is quite dark for the surrounding buildings, and I wonder if your client would consider another alternative there.
We had a conversation about that this afternoon. And she would be willing to use the color that we used on the last new construction house, which is at 940 and a half East Palace, which we did like 2 years ago. And that color was called Twig. It's a El Rey cementitious stucco, and it's called Twig. It's a little dark, but it's more like an oatmeal color.
I'm sorry, it's more like a
A dark oatmeal.
oatmeal. Okay. Yep, that sounds
It's not
sounds
as dark
better
as this color.
to me. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that flexibility.
I figured we should have a backup.
And the windows, those will be very dark.
Cladding, yes. What she designed.
Yes, Member
I
Benvenu.
don't think there's
Thank
a
you, Madam
section
Chair.
of the code that requires windows be a certain color. Or not be a certain.
Thank you for your presentation. What are the expected corners of the building? Are they bullnosed? Are they squared
They're
off?
gonna be rounded. The material, it's 10-inch thick ICF filled with concrete, so the windows will be recessed quite a bit. The exact same material construction we used at 940 East Palace. They will, yeah, they'll be rounded. I mean, they're not gonna be sharp corners, but they're not gonna be sculpted either, overly rounded. So, I mean, it would mimics the look of Adobe.
It mimics what?
Look of Adobe, once it's stuck up, absolutely.
Okay, so what radius would you say you're looking at for the corners?
Probably 1.5, 2 inch.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just asking because you said she wants a modern appearance, and that usually means not a bullnose corner. So you're
There's-
saying that's her
There's a
desire?
happy medium I found on that, it's not quite as rounded as old Santa Fe style, but certainly not sharp.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members, or comments? Anyone from the public on Zoom? Since there's no one left here.
Yes, Chair Rios, Stephanie Benenato, previously sworn. You may unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I too agree that the stucco color is, should be changed and be changed to something that, the board does allow. And I am concerned about the use of metal on the portal. It was a huge debate on the house on Alameda across from Patrick Smith Park that you had as a board. And, there was a lot of sort of twisting of ideas that metal somehow was the new wood. And really, it's not. It doesn't disintegrate back into the earth. It is not naturally formed. It is a product of, I'm sorry, Bessemer steel, all of that, the whole melting process, refinery process. So it's not at all like wood. It doesn't come across like wood. And although there will be a wall down by Alameda, I appreciate that it's open, but it's very visible from Alameda Street. And so I don't think that should be ignored. Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom? No one else? Board members, if you have nothing further, I will entertain a motion. Yes, Heather.
Chair Rios, Gary and I are trying to find the El Rey twig color. Does the applicant, do you have a copy or a color sample? One moment, so maybe you can discuss the case and then I'll come back and show you the color.
Okay, so the color that you are looking at is proposed for,
As the alternate color for the board's consideration.
no, but for stucco? Oh, okay, I thought I heard him say he was going to use the dark oatmeal color.
El Rey twig was what he referenced. I've found it under La Habra. El Rey has, I'm going to share my screen just for a moment.
Yes, Member Aguilar McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question for the applicant. I don't know which way the board is going to go tonight, but if they decide to not grant the exceptions as submitted this evening, do you have a preference in terms of coming back at the next available date with trying to address some of staff's comments versus a denial and potentially appealing it?
I guess I don't understand the question. What are the options? I mean,
Well, one option is that it might get approved with conditions, but I was just wondering if the board is leaning of the direction of not approving it as submitted this evening. And the two options were to come back to this board at the next available date with some revisions that address some of staff's concerns versus a straight out denial, which you could then appeal to city council. Do you have a preference?
either. I would prefer being approved with conditions so that we could just move forward. I mean, if steel doesn't get approved, we'll do wood. The end of the world, but she doesn't want to have to wait. 'Cause then there's a 30-day appeal period where you could submit for permits, and we're talking about another 2 months. We have to come back here or appeal. And she's not interested in lawyering up or appeal.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
IT, can you please share my screen on the screens in the chambers, please?
Here. Wait.
That is El Rey twig, which now is La Habra.
So is that an approved color or it is not?
It's interesting because it does look a little more brown on my side of things.
I'm seeing it as
Doesn't
very
look like-
gray.
Yeah, it's
Can you show the picture on Paul's phone of 940 and a half East Palace? He's got a good picture.
There you go. 940 and a half East Palace, we'll go to Street View.
I don't know. I'm just seeing that as very gray, and if it's not an approved color, that's quite a large house.
That doesn't look like the right color.
The brown.
Find that house.
This
Is that?
might be difficult to achieve from Street View, but let me see if I can zoom in.
That's-
Oh, there, she's
Yeah, that,
indicating that this might be the twig color.
that's the twig color. That's
It
the
is?
house we did for the same client,
Oh,
same material.
are you the architect
I
on?
was the architect on
Okay.
this house. It had a detached garage.
Oh, okay.
Before this board,
That is not
the board
great
approved
in
it
my
with
eyes.
the condition that we make the garage door wood, which we did.
Yes, Member Pavini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for that last comment, because I was just going to ask you about the materials of the garage. What are they currently as proposed?
That garage isn't visible at all as this one is. And it's metal, it's aluminum garage door,
Color?
black.
And, okay,
May want to consider them, so. We can't hear him.
right. Okay. So, and thank you, Member Aguilar Madrona, because I was going to ask the same question about, because most of this project looks like something that would fit well within our design guidelines. So some of us that would be concerned, as staff was, about the proposal, it's really about some of the detailing. And so if we could address some of that detailing in terms of conditions of approval, it sounds like that would be your preference. And again, I don't have any idea how the board's going to go until someone makes a motion and votes on it. But if it were to just an outright approval, it would be preferable to have a design very much like what you have here, but with some of the detailing on the color choices and material choices altered somewhat to fit what the board believes to be harmonious and staff believes to be harmonious with the streetscape and district.
I've already convinced her that changing the stucco color is the right way to go and wouldn't detract from the style of the house that she's looking.
Okay,
She is
right.
wanting the steel and she is wanting the black.
Yeah, I understand. And she wants it because, of course, it's more contemporary in style. And so that's the rub, is that the board is trying to enforce an ordinance that is actually more traditional in style.
How recent?
Yeah, it's recent as of 1957, I think, would be my answer to that. But at any rate, this particular areas that I think would be of concern, as staff has pointed out, would be the color of the trim. So that's the windows, the color of the stucco, and the use of the steel in the portal and the trellis. And I would also add to that the garage door being out of keeping with the district, and would much prefer to see a garage door along the lines of what you were showing for the other property. And I think with that and
Complete departure from design.
the
Wood, actual wood.
it doesn't have to be actual wood. No,
That's what was required on that.
I understand. But I'm talking about more of the detailing of the design. And, as you can see from the, you can see it's not on a traditional or recent Santa Fe style house that you're showing that. And it fits in much better with the house that you're showing, but I don't think it fits in with our style
Our
standards.
manufacturer doesn't have pictures of Santa Fe style.
Right, for a reason. So anyway, those would be the issues. If those were all addressed, I think it's otherwise acceptable project, and actually, it's a nice design that you put together. Thank you.
There are no further comments. Yes, Gary.
Madam Chair and members of the board, talk about public visibility. It is visible from the Canyon Road.
Right. It is visible from, we noticed on the site visit that it is. I mean, when you have the gate pulled, some of it, you may not see as much, but it is visible. Then that
I was
gate,
just speaking about where the steel is.
oh, okay.
It's not visible.
Oh. Thank you. I will entertain a motion at this time. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Case 2024-008-137 HDRB 929 Canyon Road. I move that the board approve the project as submitted. I don't believe an exception criteria for style is required, but if staff does, then the exception criteria have indeed been met. I'm proving this because I don't believe we need to redesign the project for the applicant.
Is there a second to the motion?
Each, I will second the motion with a suggestion for a friendly amendment to condition the approval on the use of a stucco of a lighter color that's twig as expressed at 940.5 East Alameda.
Yes, thank you for remembering that. Accepted as friendly.
A roll call vote, please.
Member Valdo,
No.
Member Benvenu,
No.
Vice Chair Guida,
Yes.
Member Madeline Madrano,
No.
Member Bescheid.
Yes.
It has been denied.
Motion has failed. I will entertain another motion.
Okay, I'll give it a try. So case number, by the
Yes,
floor.
Member
Thank you, Madam
Benvenu.
Chair. 2024-008-137 HDRB 929 Canyon Road. I would move to have findings entered agreeing with staff's reasoning that the exception criteria had not been met, but have conclusions entered that the project is otherwise approved as submitted on condition that the steel elements objected to by staff be replaced with wood, that the stucco color be one of the approved colors on staff's approved color chart, that the black accents on for the trim of the windows, the garage door, and otherwise be modified by using some accent color that is less dark as approved by staff, and that the windows and doors be inset to show to give the appearance of a massiveness of the walls as required by our code, and that the corners of all the facades be rounded to at least the radius that was indicated in the applicant's presentation.
Aguilar Madrano will second. May I add a suggest a friendly amendment? That the new wood elements for the portal be of a natural wood stain, not painted, for instance. And I think you stated it perfectly with the stucco color, but I just want to restate so the applicant understands that twig is not one of our approved colors as the motion is stated, so that would not be approved in a future case, potentially.
Accepted.
Anything further to add? Roll call vote, please.
Member Bescheid,
No.
Member Aguilar Madrano,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida,
No.
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
Member Valdo.
Yes.
The motion has been approved with
additions?
Amendments and additions.
Thank you, sir. We next go to discussion items. Anything under discussion?
Rios, not at this time. Well, just remembering one thing. The general plan contract is underway, under negotiation, and we're expecting to go to Finance Committee May 1st, quality of life May 1st, Finance May 6th, and the City Council for final approval on May 8th, the contract. So we'll be getting started on that. And one of the items that they're going to address right away is a digital platform. And one of the things that we want to do is to put all HDRB forms on the properties themselves. So the public can go and click on a property and be able to get that.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank you.
so that's all the public or all of my discussion items at this point. Just remember to leave your votes on your desk and Amanda will grab them.
Matters from the board. Anybody? Nada? The only thing that I was going to say is, I understand that Melissa Byers is going to retire. And I just would like to recognize her perhaps at the awards ceremony. She's been a really, really good stenographer.
Yeah.
And she's been doing it for a long time. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, May the 14th, and may I hear a motion to adjourn at this time?
Aguilar Madrano, so moves.
Scheid seconds.
And roll call vote, please.
Member Waldo,
Yes.
Member Benvenu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Guida,
Yes.
Member Aguilar Madrano, Member Bichette.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you are